Ray Coleman spent $7 on a collapsed barn at a county auction. The town laughed at him, called him crazy, called him worse. But his German shepherd, Boone, wouldn't stop digging near the foundation. What that dog found buried under the dirt changed everything. And when the deadliest ice storm in 50 years came roaring down from the north, Ray's falling down barn became the only shelter that held. The same people who mocked him came knocking, and Ray opened the door. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? Ray Coleman had nothing left but a German shepherd in an old Ford pickup. The divorce papers sat in a brown envelope on the passenger seat. He didn't need to read them again. He knew what they said. His ex-wife got the house. She got the savings. She got everything they'd built in 23 years of marriage. Ray got the truck and whatever he could fit in the bed. The sky was heavy and gray that morning. Rain threatened but hadn't started yet. The air smelled like wet pavement and cut grass. Ray stood in the driveway of what used to be his home. The house was a small ranch with blue shutters. He'd painted those shutters himself. Twice. Once when they first bought the place. Again 10 years later when Michael was in high school. The front door opened. Karen stepped out. She wore a black coat and dark jeans. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her face was empty of expression. She crossed her arms and stood on the porch. "You need to be gone by noon," she said. Her voice was flat, cold. Ray looked at her. 23 years, gone. "I'm going," he said quietly. "Good," Karen said. She didn't move, didn't soften. Ray walked to the truck bed and loaded his duffel bag. His old army jacket, a sleeping bag, a camp stove, a toolbox his father gave him in 1989. Everything he owned fit in 3 boxes and 2 bags. He looked at the house one more time, the kitchen window where they used to drink coffee on Sunday mornings, the garage where he taught Michael to change a tire, the small garden where Karen used to grow tomatoes. All of it felt like someone else's life now. Boone sat in the truck bed, watching him with calm, amber eyes. The German shepherd's ears moved with every sound. His tail was low but still. Ray climbed into the driver's seat. The engine turned over with a low rumble. He looked back at the porch. Karen was gone. The door was closed. Ray pulled out of the driveway and didn't look back again. The mountains in the distance were wrapped in heavy clouds. It was late October. The leaves were turning gold and red. The air smelled like rain and wet earth. Ray drove through town slowly, past the diner where he used to eat breakfast on Sundays, past the hardware store where he bought paint for the nursery before his son was born, past the church where they got married. Everything felt smaller now, distant, like he was watching his own life from somewhere far away. He stopped at a red light. An old man crossed the street in front of him. Ray recognized him. "Mr. Patterson used to live 2 houses down." The man looked right at Ray, then he looked away and kept walking. Ray's chest tightened. The light turned green. He drove on. Boone jumped into the front seat and pressed his head against Ray's shoulder. The dog's nose was cold. His breath was warm. Ray reached up and scratched behind Boone's ears. "Just you and me now, buddy," Ray said softly. Boone's tail thumped once against the seat. Ray drove for an hour. He didn't have a destination. He just drove. The highway cut through the valley. Pine trees lined both sides. The mountains rose up in the distance, their peaks hidden in clouds. Ray passed a sign that read Ridge Falls, 20 miles. He'd heard of Ridge Falls. Small town, logging community, population less than 1,000. He kept driving. His phone rang. Ray glanced at the screen. It was Michael, his son. Ray hesitated. Then he answered. "Yeah," Ray said. "Dad." Michael's voice was tight, uncomfortable. "I heard about the divorce." "It's done," Ray said. There was a pause. Ray could hear traffic in the background. Michael lived in Seattle now, worked for some tech company. They hadn't spoken in 2 years. "Where are you staying?" Michael asked. "I'm figuring it out," Ray said. Another pause. "You need money?" "No," Ray said. "I'm fine." "Dad, I'm fine," Ray said again. The silence stretched. "Okay," Michael said finally. "Take care of yourself." "You too," Ray said. The line went dead. Ray set the phone down. He stared at the road ahead. The rain started, light at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers beat a steady rhythm. Boone curled up on the seat beside him. The dog's weight was warm and solid. Ray drove until he saw the sign for the county courthouse. He pulled into the parking lot. There was a small crowd gathered near the back. 15 people stood around in the bond, hands in pockets, breath rising in small clouds. A banner hung from a folding table. County auction. Ray parked and stepped out. The rain was steady now, cold. He zipped up his jacket and walked toward the crowd. Boone followed close behind. The auctioneer was a short man with gray hair and a thick jacket. He stood on the flatbed of a truck and called out lots one by one. A riding mower, a storage shed, a boat trailer. Ray stood near the back. Boone sat beside him, ears alert. Ray wasn't sure why he'd stopped. He had $400 left in his checking account. Nowhere to go, no plan. But something kept him there. The auctioneer pointed to a photograph pinned to a board. It showed an old barn, falling apart. Roof caved in. Next item, the man said. Parcel 17, collapsed barn on County Road 42. 2 acres, no utilities, no access road. Condemned structure. Sold as is. A few people laughed. Someone made a joke Ray didn't hear. A woman shook her head and walked away. The auctioneer started the bidding at $50. No one raised a hand. Come on, folks, the auctioneer said. It's 2 acres. That's worth something. Still nothing. 25, the auctioneer said. Silence. 10. The crowd shifted. Someone coughed. The auctioneer sighed. $7. Do I have 7? Ray raised his hand. He didn't think about it. He just did it. The auctioneer pointed at him. Sold to the gentleman in the back for $7. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone said, good luck with that. Another voice said, sucker. Ray walked to the folding table near the courthouse steps. A clerk sat behind it, a metal cash box in front of her. She was middle-aged with kind eyes and a tired smile. $7, she said. Ray pulled out his wallet and handed her a 5 and 2 ones. She counted it, stamped a form, handed him a deed and a hand-drawn map. It's about 40 miles north, she said, past Miller's Crossing. Road's not paved. You'll need 4-wheel drive. Ray nodded. He folded the deed and put it in his jacket pocket. Good luck, the clerk said quietly. Ray looked at her. She wasn't mocking him. She meant it. Thank you, he said. He walked back to the truck. Boone was already in the passenger seat, watching through the window. Ray climbed in and started the engine. He pulled the map out and studied it. The road was marked in pencil, narrow, winding. Ray put the truck in gear and pulled out onto the highway. The rain came down harder now. The sky was dark. The wipers struggled to keep up. Ray turned off onto a gravel road 30 miles later. The truck bumped over ruts and stones. The trees closed in on both sides. Thick pines, their branches hung low, heavy with rain. The road narrowed to barely more than a trail. Mud splashed up against the windows. The truck slid once, then caught traction. Ray kept going. After 20 minutes, the trees opened up. A wide clearing spread out before him. And there, in the center, was the barn. Ray stopped the truck. He stared. The barn was worse than the photograph. The roof had collapsed on the right side. The walls leaned inward, like they were too tired to stand. The red paint had faded to the color of old rust. Tall grass and weeds grew up around the foundation, waist-high in places. A few old fence posts stood crooked in the dirt, leaning at odd angles. The windows were gone, just empty black holes. Ray sat there for a long moment. The rain drummed on the roof of the truck. Boone stood up on the seat and looked out the window. The dog's ears were alert. His tail was low. Ray took a deep breath. He opened the door and stepped out. The rain soaked through his jacket in seconds. The cold bit at his face. He walked slowly toward the barn. The ground was soft. Mud sucked at his boots. The air smelled like wet wood and earth and rust. Boone jumped down from the truck and followed. The dog sniffed the ground as he walked. His nose traced invisible trails through the mud. Ray stepped through the wide opening where a door used to be. Inside, the floor was dirt, packed hard. The roof above had caved in on one side, leaving a hole open to the sky. Rain poured through. Old beams lay across the ground, rotting. There were no windows, no door, just the shell of what used to be. Ray stood in the center and looked up. He could see the clouds moving overhead, dark and fast. The wind howled through the gaps in the walls. Boone came in and sat beside him. The dog's fur was soaked, but he didn't move. He just sat there, calm and steady. Ray knelt down and ran his hand along Boone's back. "We've slept in worse places, haven't we?" Ray said quietly. Boone looked up at him with calm eyes. Ray stood. He walked the perimeter of the barn. He studied the foundation. Old stone, laid tight, solid. The walls were rough-cut timber, thick, strong. Whoever built this place knew what they were doing. The roof could be replaced. The walls could be braced. It would take time. It would take work. But it could be done. Ray walked back outside. He looked around the clearing. The land rolled gently down toward a line of trees. Beyond that, mountains rose up, their peaks lost in clouds. The rain was lighter now, just a steady drizzle. Ray took a deep breath. The air was cold and clean. For the first time in months, the weight in his chest felt a little lighter. He walked back to the truck and pulled out his sleeping bag. He grabbed the tarp from the bed, the camp stove, a lantern. Boone followed him back to the barn. Ray spread the tarp over one corner where the roof still held. He weighed down the edges with stones. He rolled out the sleeping bag on top of the tarp. It wasn't much, but it was dry. He set up the camp stove just outside the barn entrance. He heated a can of soup. The smell of chicken broth filled the air. Boone sat beside him, watching. Ray poured the soup into a tin cup. He sat on a flat stone and ate slowly. The warmth spread through his chest. The rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking apart. Through the gaps, Ray could see the first stars. Boone lay down beside him. The dog rested his chin on Ray's boot. Ray finished the soup and set the cup aside. He leaned back against the stone and looked up at the sky. The stars were coming out one by one, bright and clear. The Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of light. "Not bad, huh?" Ray said softly. Boone's tail thumped once against the ground. Ray sat there for a longer time. The forest around them was quiet, just the wind in the trees, the distant call of an owl, the soft rustle of something moving through the underbrush. Ray closed his eyes. He thought about the house he'd left behind, about Karen's cold voice, about Michael's uncomfortable silence. He thought about the barn, about the clearing, about the mountains. He opened his eyes. The stars were still there. Boone was still beside him. Ray stood. He walked back into the barn. He lay down on the sleeping bag. Boone curled up beside him. The dog's warmth pressed against his side. Ray reached out and rested his hand on Boone's shoulder. "We'll figure it out," Ray whispered. The stars turned slowly overhead. The wind moved through the trees. Ray fell asleep to the sound of the forest. Ray woke before sunrise. The sky was still dark, but lighter along the eastern edge. The air was cold and sharp. His breath came out in small clouds. Boone was already awake, sitting at the entrance to the barn, ears pointed toward the trees. Ray sat up slowly. His back ached from the hard ground. His knee was stiff. The old injury from Iraq. He'd taken shrapnel just above the kneecap. Some days it barely hurt. Other days he could hardly walk. Today was somewhere in between. He stood and stretched. His joints popped. He walked to the entrance and stood beside Boone. The clearing was quiet. The grass was wet with dew. The mountains in the distance were dark shapes against the lighter sky. The first birds were starting to call, soft chirps and whistles. Ray took a deep breath. The air smelled like pine and wet earth and wood smoke from somewhere far away. Boone stood and walked out into the clearing. The dog's nose worked the ground. His tail was low but relaxed. Ray watched him. The dog moved in wide circles, sniffing everything. Then he came back and sat beside Ray. "You like it here, don't you?" Ray said softly. Boone's tail thumped. Ray spent the morning walking the property. He followed the tree line. He walked down to the stream he'd seen on the map. It was narrow but clear. The water ran fast over smooth stones. Ray knelt and cupped his hands. He drank. The water was ice cold and tasted like minerals. Boone waded into the stream. The dog stood in the current and looked around, ears alert. Ray walked back to the barn. He studied the structure in the daylight. The foundation was solid. The stones were thick and well laid. The walls were rough timber, hand cut. The beams were massive, 12 inches square, held together with wooden pegs and iron brackets. This barn was old, maybe 100 years, maybe more. The roof was the biggest problem. Half of it had collapsed. The other half sagged, but the main support beams were still standing. Ray could work with that. He spent the rest of the day clearing debris. He pulled broken beams out of the interior. He stacked them outside. He cleared the rotted wood, the old hay, the rusted tools. His hands were cut and blistered by midday. His knee throbbed, but he kept going. Boone stayed close. The dog wandered around the clearing, then came back to sit near Ray. Every time Ray stopped to rest, Boone was there. The sun moved slowly across the sky. The air warmed. By late afternoon, Ray had cleared enough space inside to see the full layout. The barn was bigger than he'd thought, maybe 40 feet long, 20 feet wide, high ceilings. There was a loft on one end, though the ladder was long gone. Ray stood in the center and looked around. He could see it, not as it was, but as it could be. He drove into town that evening. The sun was low, the sky was gold and pink, Ridge Falls was small, one main street, a few side streets. Most of the buildings were old, wood and brick. There was a diner with a neon sign that said Maggie's, a post office, a general store with a faded awning, a gas station at the edge of town. Ray parked in front of the general store. Boone stayed in the truck. Ray stepped inside. A bell jingled above the door. The store smelled like coffee and old wood and dust. Shelves lined the walls, canned goods, tools, work gloves, rope, a few racks of clothing. A woman stood behind the counter. She was older, maybe 60, with gray hair pulled back in a bun. She wore a flannel shirt and jeans. She looked up when Ray walked in. Her eyes were sharp, but not unkind. "Help you?" she said. "I need some supplies," Ray said. "Nails, tarps, maybe some 2x4s if you have them." The woman studied him for a moment. "You new around here?" "Just bought some land up past Miller's Crossing," Ray said. The woman's eyebrows went up. "The old barn?" Ray nodded. She shook her head slowly. "That place has been falling apart for 20 years. Counties have tried to sell it a dozen times." "I know," Ray said. The woman didn't say anything for a moment. Then she walked down the aisle. She pulled items off the shelves: a box of nails, a hammer, a box of screws, a roll of heavy plastic sheeting. She set everything on the counter. "You'll need more than this," she said. "I know," Ray said again. She rang up the items. $62.50. Ray pulled out his wallet. He counted out 3 20s and 3 1s. She made change and handed it to him. She bagged everything. "There's a lumber yard about 10 miles south on Highway 14, she said. "They might give you a deal if you mention my name. Tell them Rose sent you." Ray looked at her. "Thank you." Rose nodded. "You got family?" "No," Ray said. "Just me and my dog." Rose glanced out the window. She could see Boone sitting in the truck. "German Shepherd?" "Yes, ma'am." Rose smiled. "Just a little." "Good dogs." "The best," Ray said. Rose handed him the bag. "Good luck." Ray walked back to the truck. He set the supplies in the bed. Boone turned and looked at him through the back window. Ray climbed into the cab. "Made a friend, I think," Ray said softly. Boone's tail thumped. Ray drove back to the barn. The sun was setting. The sky was deep orange and purple. The mountains were black silhouettes. He parked and unloaded the supplies. He built a small fire outside the barn. He heated another can of soup on the camp stove. He sat on a flat stone and ate slowly. Boone lay beside him, resting his chin on Ray's boot. The fire crackled softly. Sparks rose into the darkening sky. The stars came out one by one. Thousands of them, more than Ray had ever seen. The forest around them was alive with sound. The rustle of leaves, the call of a distant owl, the soft chirp of crickets. Ray finished the soup and set the can aside. He leaned back and looked up at the skimming. "First full day," he said quietly. What do you think, boy? Boone's tail thumped twice. Ray smiled. He sat there until the fire burned down to coals. Then he stood and walked into the barn. He lay down on the sleeping bag. Boone curled up beside him. The dog's breathing was slow and steady. Ray listened to it in the dark. It was the only sound he needed. He closed his eyes. He thought about the work ahead, the roof, the walls, the foundation. It would take months, maybe longer, but he had time. He had nothing but time, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough. Ray worked every day. He woke with the sun. He ate a simple breakfast. Oatmeal or canned fruit, instant coffee heated on the camp stove. Then he worked until the light faded. He drove to the lumber yard Rose had told him about. The owner was a man named Gene. Thick arms, sun-creased face. He wore overalls and a faded baseball cap. "Rose sent you?" Gene said. "She did," Ray said. Gene nodded. "What do you need?" Ray told him. 2x6s, plywood, roofing nails, tar paper. Gene walked him through the yard. He pointed out wood that was discounted, slightly warped, a little weathered, but strong. "This'll do the job," Gene said, "and it won't break you." Ray bought what he could afford. Gene helped him load it into the truck. "You doing this alone?" Gene asked. "Just me," Ray said. Gene looked at him for a moment. "You need help, you let me know." Ray nodded. "I appreciate that." He drove back to the barn. He unloaded the wood. He spent the next week bracing the walls. He cut new beams. He bolted them to the old timber. He worked slowly, carefully. His knee hurt. His hands were raw. But the work felt good, solid, real. Boone was always nearby. The dog followed Ray around the clearing, sat beside him when he rested, watched the tree line with alert eyes. One morning, a truck pulled up to the edge of the clearing. Ray straightened up. He set down his hammer. A man got out. He was maybe 50, thick arms, a hard face. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans, a gun rack in the back window of his truck. He walked over slowly. Boone moved to Ray's side. The dog didn't growl, but his ears were flat. "You the one who bought this place?" the man said. "I am," Ray said. The man looked around. His eyes took in the stacked wood, the new beams, the tarp Ray had set up for shelter. "You planning to live here?" "That's the idea," Ray said. The man shook his head. "This barn's been condemned for 15 years. You're wasting your time." Ray didn't say anything. The man stared at him. "County should have torn this place down a long time ago." Ray met his eyes. "It's my place now." The man spat into the dirt. "Good luck with that." He turned and walked back to his truck. He got in and drove off without another word. Ray stood there for a moment. Then he went back to work. A few days later, another truck came by. This one slowed down but didn't stop. The driver was a younger man. He had someone with him in the passenger seat. They both stared. The passenger pointed, said something Ray couldn't hear. They laughed. Then they drove off. Ray kept working. Rose drove out one afternoon. She brought a thermos of coffee and a paper bag with sandwiches inside. She parked and got out. Boone walked over to greet her. Rose knelt down and scratched behind his ears. "Good boy," she said. Boone's tail wagged. Rose stood and handed Ray the bag. "Thought you might be hungry." Ray took it. "Thank you." Rose looked around. Her eyes moved over the new beams, the cleared interior, the stacked wood. "You've done a lot," she said. "Still a long way to go," Ray said. Rose nodded. She poured coffee from the thermos into the lid and handed it to Ray. He drank. It was hot and strong. "If you need help," Rose said, "there's a few folks in town who might lend a hand." "I appreciate that," Ray said. Rose looked at him. "You were military?" Ray nodded. "Iraq, 2 tours." Rose was quiet for a moment. "My son was in Afghanistan." "Is he?" Ray started. "He made it home," Rose said, "but he's not the same." Ray nodded. He understood. Rose finished her coffee. "You need anything, you come see me." "I will," Ray said. She got back in her truck and drove off. Ray ate one of the sandwiches, turkey and cheese, fresh bread. He tore off a piece and tossed it to Boone. The dog caught it in the air. That evening, Ray noticed something strange. Boone kept going to the same spot near the foundation on the north side of the barn. The dog would walk over, sniff the ground, paw at the dirt, sit down and stare at it. His ears would go forward, his tail would go still. Then, after a few minutes, he'd come back to Ray. A little while later, he'd go back to the same spot. Ray watched him. "What is it, boy?" Ray said. Boone's ears twitched. The dog looked at Ray, then back at the ground. Ray walked over. He knelt down and brushed the dirt with his hand. It felt like normal ground. Packed earth, a few small stones. Nothing unusual. He pushed his fingers into the soil. It was harder here, more compact. "You smell something," Ray said. Boone's tail thumped once. Ray stood. He made a mental note of the spot. But he didn't dig, not yet. He had too much other work to do. The days grew colder. November came. The mornings were sharp and clear. Frost covered the grass. Ray's breath came out in clouds. He finished rebuilding the north wall. He started on the roof. He climbed up onto the standing beams. He worked carefully. The wood was old. Some of it cracked under his weight. He replaced the rotten sections. He laid new beams across the top. He nailed down plywood, then tar paper, then shingles. It was slow work, dangerous. One wrong step and he'd fall 15 feet. But Ray had worked on roofs before. In Iraq, they'd rebuilt schools, hospitals. He knew how to move, how to balance. Boone sat below and watched. The dog's eyes followed Ray everywhere. One afternoon, Ray's foot slipped. He caught himself on a beam. His knee twisted. Pain shot through his leg. He gasped and held on. Boone stood up immediately. The dog barked once, sharp, urgent. Ray breathed slowly. He steadied himself. He climbed down carefully. When he reached the ground, his knee was throbbing. Boone was right there. The dog pressed against Ray's leg. "I'm okay," Ray said quietly. "I'm okay, boy." Boone whined softly. Ray sat down on a stack of lumber. He stretched his leg out. The knee was swollen. He'd have to take it easy for a few days. Boone lay down beside him. The dog rested his head on Ray's thigh. Ray ran his hand along Boone's back. "You always watching out for me, aren't you?" Ray said. Boone's tail thumped. That night, Ray lay on the sleeping bag inside the barn. His knee ached. He stared up at the gap in the roof. The stars were visible, bright and cold. A sudden sound cut through the silence. A sharp crack, like a gunshot. Ray's body went rigid. His heart pounded. The barn disappeared. The stars faded. In their place rose the flat, dusty streets of Fallujah. The sun was blinding. The heat pressed down like a weight. Ray was in the lead Humvee. The radio crackled. Voices shouted. The street ahead was empty. Too empty. Then the explosion. The flash of light. The wall of sound. The Humvee flipped. Metal screamed. Glass shattered. Ray's head slammed against something hard. His ears rang. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Dust filled the air, thick and choking. Someone was screaming. Boone was already there. The dog pressed his full weight against Ray's chest. His head pushed firmly against Ray's face. Ray blinked. The dust cleared. The barn returned. The mountains, the cold air. Ray's breathing was fast, ragged. His hands shook. Boone didn't move. The dog stayed pressed against him. Warm, solid, real. Ray focused on the dog's breathing. In and out, slow and steady. Ray matched it. In, out, in, out. His heartbeat slowed. His hands stopped shaking. "I'm okay," Ray whispered. "I'm back. I'm okay." Boone licked Ray's face once. Then the dog settled beside him, his weight warm and steady. Ray lay there for a long time. He stared at the stars. He listened to Boone's breathing. Slowly, the tightness in his chest eased. He reached out and rested his hand on Boone's shoulder. "Good boy," Ray whispered. "Good boy." The stars turned overhead. The wind moved through the trees. Ray closed his eyes. He was home. Winter came early that year. The first snow fell in mid-November. Ray woke to silence, the kind of silence that only comes with snow. He sat up and looked outside. The world was white. Light flakes drifted down through the trees. They fell slowly, like feathers. The clearing was covered. The barn, the stacked wood, the truck. Everything softened under a blanket of white. Ray stood and walked to the entrance. The air was cold and clean. It smelled like ice and pine. Boone stepped out beside him. The dog's ears were dusted with snowflakes. Ray smiled. "First snow, buddy," he said softly. Boone's tail thumped. The dog walked out into the clearing. He sniffed the snow, pawed at it. Then he looked back at Ray as if to say, "What is this?" Ray laughed. It was the first time he'd laughed in months. The work continued. Ray finished the roof. He patched the last holes. He sealed the edges with tar. The barn was weatherproof now. He built a door out of salvaged wood, hung it on iron hinges Jean had given him. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. He found an old wood stove at a salvage yard 20 miles away. Cast iron. Heavy. He loaded it into the truck with Jean's help. They drove it back to the barn. Together, they carried it inside and set it up in the corner. Ray ran a metal pipe up through the roof for the chimney. That night, he lit the first fire. The stove glowed. Heat filled the barn. Ray sat on his sleeping bag and watched the flames through the small iron door. Boone lay beside him. The Pui's eyes were half closed, content. "We've got heat now," Ray said. Boone's tail thumped lazily. The days were short, the sun set early, but the work felt good. Ray built a wooden platform to sleep on, raised it off the dirt floor. He insulated the walls with old blankets and tarps. He covered the windows with plastic sheeting to keep the wind out. The barn was starting to feel like a home, but Boone kept going back to that same spot. Every single day, sometimes multiple times. The dog would walk over to the north side of the barn, stand near the foundation, sniff the ground, paw at the dirt, sit and stare. Ray watched him. The behavior was getting more intense, more focused. Boone would whine softly, scratch at the ground, look back at Ray with urgent eyes. "All right, boy," Ray said one morning. "Let's see what you're so worked up about." He grabbed a shovel from the truck. He walked over to the spot. Boone was already there, tail wagging. Ray drove the shovel into the ground. The earth was cold and hard, frozen in places. The shovel bit in slowly. Ray worked carefully. He dug down 6 inches, then a foot, then 2 feet. His breath came out in clouds. His hands were cold. The shovel hit something solid. Ray stopped. He knelt down and brushed the dirt away with his hands. Wood. Old wood, smooth and dark. Ray's pulse quickened. He dug around the edges. It was a box, maybe 2 feet long, a foot wide, 8 inches deep, wrapped in oilcloth that had rotted away in places. Ray pulled it out carefully. It was heavier than he expected. He set it on the ground beside the hole. Boone came closer. The dog's nose worked over the box. His tail wagged harder. Ray wiped the dirt off the top. There were no markings, no lock, just a simple wooden lid held down by 4 rusted nails. Ray used the edge of the shovel to pry the nails loose. They came out slowly, groaning. He set the shovel aside. He lifted the lid with both hands. Inside was a leather pouch, old and cracked. Ray picked it up. It was heavy, dense. He opened the drawstring slowly. Gold coins spilled into his hand. Ray stared. The coins caught the light. They gleamed, even through the tarnish. He turned one over. The surface was worn, but the details were still visible. An eagle. Stars. The date, 1863. Civil War era. Ray's hands trembled. He counted the coins. 53. All gold. All dated between 1861 and 1865. He set them down gently on top of the oilcloth. He reached back into the box. There was something else underneath. A folded piece of paper, brittle and yellow. Ray unfolded it with great care. The paper cracked along the creases. The handwriting was faded but still readable. Careful script in black ink. Ray read slowly. "To whoever finds this. My name is Samuel Garrett. I built this barn in the year 1867 with my own hands and the help of my brother Thomas. We fought for the Union in the war. Thomas did not come home. I came home with nothing but the clothes on my back and these coins. Payment for 4 years of service. I buried them here in case I ever needed them. I never did. The land gave me everything I needed. If you are reading this, then I am long gone. And you need these coins more than I ever did. Use them well. Build something that lasts. Build something that matters. The land will take care of you if you take care of it. God bless. Samuel Garrett, April 1889. Ray read the letter again, then a third time. His hands were shaking. His throat was tight. He looked down at the coins, at the box, at the letter. A man had stood in this exact spot more than 100 years ago. A man who had fought in a war, who had lost his brother, who had come home and built this barn with his own hands, who had buried his life savings and walked away. Ray's eyes burned. He blinked hard. Boone pressed his head against Ray's arm. The dog whined softly. Ray looked down. "You found it," Ray said quietly. His voice cracked. "You found it, boy." Boone's tail wagged. Ray sat there for a long time. The cold seeped through his jeans. The wind moved through the trees. Snow began to fall again, soft and slow. Ray folded the letter carefully. He put it back in the box with the coins. He carried the box inside the barn. He set it on the wooden platform and covered it with a blanket. Then he went back outside. He filled in the hole. He packed the dirt down. He stood and looked around the clearing. The barn, the trees, the mountains beyond. Samuel Garrett had stood here, had looked at these same mountains, had felt this same wind, and now Ray stood here. It felt like something had been passed down. Not just the coins, but something deeper, a responsibility, a purpose, Boone. Ray took a deep breath. The cold air filled his lungs. "Thank you," he said softly to the wind, to the trees, to Samuel Garrett, wherever he was. Boone sat beside him. The dog leaned against Ray's leg. Ray reached down and scratched behind Boone's ears. "Good boy," he said. "You did real good." That night, Ray couldn't sleep. He lay on the platform and stared at the ceiling. The wood stove glowed softly in the corner. He thought about the coins, about what they were worth, about what he could do with them. He could leave, buy a small house somewhere, start over. But the thought didn't sit right. Samuel Garrett hadn't left. He'd stayed. He'd built something. Ray closed his eyes. He listened to Boone's breathing beside him. He listened to the wind outside. He made his decision. He would stay. He would finish the barn. He would build something that lasted, just like Samuel Garrett had. Ray drove into town the next morning. The roads were clear, but lined with snow. He parked in front of a small shop on Main Street. The sign read Anderson's Coins and Collectibles. Ray walked inside. A bell jingled. The shop was small and warm. Glass cases lined the walls. Inside were coins, stamps, old photographs. A man stood behind the counter. He was old, maybe 70, with white hair and thick glasses. He looked up when Ray entered. "Help you?" the man said. "I need something appraised," Ray said. The man nodded. "Let's see it." Ray pulled one of the gold coins from his pocket. He set it on the counter. The man picked it up. He studied it closely, turned it over, held it up to the light. He pulled out a magnifying glass and examined the surface. "Where'd you get this?" the man said. "Found it," Ray said. "On my property." The man looked at him, then back at the coin. "This is real. 1863 Liberty Head. Good condition." He set it down gently. "You got more?" 52 more, Ray said. The man's eyebrows went up. "You're sitting on about $60,000, maybe more if you find the right buyer." Ray nodded slowly. He picked up the coin and put it back in his pocket. "Thank you." "You selling?" the man asked. "Not yet," Ray said. "You change your mind? You come see me," the man said. "I know people who'd pay top dollar." Ray walked out. He sat in the truck for a moment. $60,000. It was more money than he'd ever had at one time. More than he'd ever imagined having. He could pay off the debt from the divorce. He could buy tools, materials. He could finish the barn properly. He could live for years on that money if he was careful. But word would spread. In a town this small, secrets didn't last long. Ray drove back to the barn. He thought about what to do. That night, his phone rang. Ray looked at the screen. He didn't recognize the number. He answered. "Mr. Coleman," a voice said. Smooth, professional. "This is Gerald Vance. I'm a developer based out of Eugene. I've heard about your property." Ray said nothing. "I'd like to make you an offer," Vance said. $200,000, cash. You can walk away today and never look back." "How'd you hear about my property?" Ray asked. "Word travels," Vance said. "Small towns talk. I hear you found something valuable." Ray's jaw tightened. "I'm not selling." "Mr. Coleman, let's be realistic," Vance said. "That barn is a wreck. The land has no access, no utilities, no value. You'd be smart to take this deal while it's on the table." "I said I'm not selling," Ray said. "Think about it," Vance said. "I'll call you again in a few days." "Don't bother," Ray said. He hung up. The phone rang again 5 minutes later. Same number. Ray didn't answer. It rang 3 more times that night. Ray turned off the phone. The next morning, a black SUV pulled up to the clearing. Ray was outside, splitting wood. Boone stood immediately. The dog's ears went flat. A low growl rumbled in his chest. A man stepped out of the SUV. He was tall, thin, expensive coat, polished shoes that had no business being in the mud. He walked toward the barn like he owned it. "Mr. Coleman," the man said, "I'm Gerald Vance." Ray set down the axe. He didn't say anything. Vance looked around, at the barn, at the stacked wood, at the clearing. "I can see you've put some work in," Vance said. "But let's be honest, this place will never be worth what I'm offering." Ray crossed his arms. "I told you I'm not selling." "You're a homeless veteran living in a condemned barn," Vance said. His voice was smooth but cold. "Don't kid yourself. You're one bad winter away from freezing to death out here." Boone's growl grew louder. The dog stepped forward. Vance glanced at Boone. He took a small step back. "I'm offering you a way out," Vance said. "A way to start over somewhere warm, somewhere safe." Ray looked at him. "This is my home." Vance laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. This is a ruin." "It's mine," Ray said quietly. Vance's smile faded. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Ray said, "but it's my mistake to make." Vance stared at him for a long moment. "You'll regret this." He turned and walked back to the SUV. He got in and drove off fast. Gravel and mud sprayed up behind the tires. Ray stood there. His hands were clenched. His jaw was tight. Boone came over and leaned against his leg. Ray reached down and rested his hand on the dog's head. "Good boy," he said softly. "Good boy." That afternoon, Ray's phone rang again. He turned it back on to check the weather. He saw the name on the screen. Karen, his ex-wife. He hesitated. Then he answered. "What?" Ray said. No greeting. "I heard about the coins," Karen said. Her voice was sharp, cold. "What about them?" Ray said. "Half of that belongs to me," Karen said. "We were married when you bought that land." "I bought it after the divorce was final," Ray said. "Doesn't matter," Karen said. "I'm calling my lawyer. We'll see what a judge says." Ray was quiet for a moment. "You took everything, Karen. The house, the savings, everything we built in 23 years. And it still wasn't enough." "You got what you deserved," Karen said. "You were never there. You were always gone. The war, the drinking, the nightmares. I couldn't do it anymore." Ray closed his eyes. "I know." "Then don't fight me on this," Karen said. "Just give me what I'm owed, and we can both move on." "I don't owe you anything," Ray said quietly. "Ray, you made your choice," Ray said. "I'm making mine." He hung up. He turned off the phone. He sat on the platform inside the barn. Boone lay beside him. Ray's hands were shaking, not from fear, from anger, from exhaustion, from years of carrying weight that wasn't his to carry. "Let them come," Ray said softly. "Let them all come." Boone's tail thumped once. Ray lay back. He stared at the ceiling. The wood stove crackled in the corner. The wind moved through the trees outside. He thought about Samuel Garrett, About a man who came home from war with nothing, who built something with his own hands, who left it behind for someone else to find. Ray wasn't going to let them take this. Not Vance, not Karen, not anyone. This was his. He'd earned it. Not with money, with blood and sweat and sleepless nights. With every nail he'd driven, every beam he'd raised, he closed his eyes. Boone shifted closer. The dog's warmth pressed against his side. "We're staying," Ray whispered, "no matter what." The wind answered, soft and steady through the trees. The call came from Rose 2 weeks later. Her voice was tight, urgent. "Ray, you need to listen to me," she said. "There's a storm coming, a bad one. Ice storm. They're saying it'll be the worst in 50 years. "When?" Ray asked. "Tonight," Rose said. "Maybe sooner. You need to get into town. You can stay at my place." "I'll be fine," Ray said. "Ray, this isn't a joke," Rose said. "People are going to die if they're not prepared. Trees are going to come down. Power is going to go out. Roads are going to be impassable." "I appreciate it, Rose," Ray said. "But I'm staying." Rose was quiet for a moment. "You're stubborn." "Yes, ma'am," Ray said. Rose sighed. "Then you stock up. You hear me? Water, food, firewood, lots of firewood." "I will," Ray said. "And Ray?" "Yeah? If it gets bad, you call me. You understand?" "I understand," Ray said. He hung up. He drove into town immediately. He bought canned food, batteries, candles. He filled every container he had with water. He bought 50 pounds of dog food for Boone. Jean helped him load firewood into the truck. "You sure about this?" Jean asked. "I'm sure," Ray said. Jean nodded. "Good luck." Ray drove back to the barn. He unloaded everything. He stacked the firewood inside near the stove. He filled the stove and got a fire going. He checked the roof, the door, the windows. Everything was sealed. The barn was ready. Boone watched him work. The dog's ears were alert. He could sense something coming. That evening, the sky changed. The clouds came in low and fast, heavy and dark. The air turned cold, colder than it had been all winter. The wind picked up. It moved through the trees with a sound like rushing water. Ray stood outside and looked up. The first drops of rain started to fall. Cold, heavy. They hit the ground with a sharp sound. Within minutes, the rain was steady. Then the temperature dropped. Ray could feel it. The rain started to freeze as it fell. It coated everything, the trees, the ground. The roof of the barn. Ray went inside. He closed the door. He fed more wood into the stove. The fire burned hot and bright. Boone lay near the stove, watching Ray. "We're going to be fine, boy," Ray said. Boone's tail thumped. The storm hit in full force an hour later. The wind screamed. It shook the barn. The walls groaned, but they held. The rain turned to ice. It hammered against the roof, against the walls. The sound was deafening. Ray sat on the platform. He listened. The barn creaked, shifted, but the foundation was solid. The roof was sealed. The walls were braced. Everything Ray had built over the past 2 months held. Outside, the world turned to ice. Trees cracked under the weight. Branches snapped and fell. The sound echoed through the forest like gunshots. Ray lay down. Boone curled up beside him. The dog's breathing was calm, steady. Ray closed his eyes. He listened to the storm. He wasn't afraid. Morning came. The storm was still raging. Ray looked outside through a gap in the plastic sheeting. The world was encased in ice. Every tree, every branch, every blade of grass. The clearing looked like glass. Then he heard it. A sound beneath the wind. An engine. Struggling. Ray stood. He opened the door. A truck was coming up the road. Slowly. Sliding on the ice. It stopped at the edge of the clearing. The door opened. A man got out. It was the neighbor, the one who'd told Ray he was wasting his time. His face was red from the cold. His hands were shaking. "My roof collapsed," the man said. His voice was rough, desperate. "My family's in the truck. We have nowhere to go." Ray looked at him, then past him, at the truck. A woman sat in the passenger seat, 2 kids in the back, their faces pressed against the window. Come inside, Ray said. The man turned and waved. The family got out. They ran toward the barn, slipping on the ice. Ray held the door open. They came inside. The warmth from the stove hit them immediately. The woman gasped. She started crying. Thank you, she said. Thank you. The kids stood close to their mother. They were maybe 8 and 10, a boy and a girl, shivering. Ray gestured to the platform. Sit, warm up. They sat. Ray poured hot water from a pot on the stove. He made instant coffee, handed cups to the adults. The woman held the cup with both hands. She drank and closed her eyes. I'm Tom, the man said. His voice was quieter now, ashamed. We met before. I remember, Ray said. Tom looked down. I was wrong about you. Ray didn't say anything. An hour later, another truck arrived. Then another. People started coming. Families whose homes had lost power, whose roofs had caved in, whose pipes had frozen and burst. Ray let them all in. By midday, there were 12 people in the barn. Rose was one of them. She'd brought supplies, blankets, more food, a portable stove. She set up in one corner and started making soup. The smell filled the barn, warm and rich. The kids sat near the fire. Boone moved among them, gentle, calm. One little girl reached out and touched his head. Boone's tail wagged slowly. The girl smiled. The storm lasted 2 days. The wind never stopped. The ice kept falling. Outside, the world was white and silent and deadly. But inside the barn, there was warmth. There was light. There was food. People talked quietly, shared stories, helped each other. On the second night, Tom walked over to Ray. I need to say something, Tom said. Ray looked at him. I was wrong about you, Tom said. About this place. About everything. Ray nodded. It's okay. No, Tom said. It's not. I said things. I thought things. I was wrong. He held out his hand. Ray looked at it. Then he shook it. We're good, Ray said. Tom's eyes were wet. He nodded and walked back to his family. The storm finally broke on the third day. The wind died down. The rain stopped. The sun came out. The world was coated in ice. It gleamed in the light, beautiful and deadly. People started to leave, slowly, carefully. They thanked Ray. Some of them hugged him. The kids waved. Tom shook his hand again. Rose was the last to go. She stood in the doorway and looked back at Ray. You saved a lot of people, she said. The barn saved them, Ray said. Rose smiled. You built the barn. She walked to her truck. She turned back once more. You're one of us now, she said, whether you like it or not. She drove off. Ray stood in the clearing. The sun was bright. The mountains gleamed with ice. The trees sparkled. Boone sat beside him. Ray reached down and scratched behind the dog's ears. We did good, buddy, Ray said softly. Boone's tail thumped. Months passed. Winter turned to spring. The snow melted. The ice disappeared. The grass turned green. Wildflowers bloomed in the clearing, purple and yellow and white. Ray finished the barn. He built a real porch with a roof and railings. He planted a garden. Tomatoes, lettuce, carrots. He hung a swing from one of the old oak trees at the edge of the clearing. Children from town came to visit. They played on the swing, ran through the grass. Boone watched over them like a patient grandfather. The town didn't laugh anymore. People drove out to see the barn, to see what Ray had built, to see the man who'd taken a collapsing ruin and turned it into something solid, something real. Some of them asked if they could help. Ray said yes. Together, they built a fence around the garden. They cleared a path down to the stream. They planted trees along the edge of the clearing. The barn became more than a home. It became a gathering place, a place where people knew they could go if they needed help, if they needed shelter, if they just needed someone to listen. Ray didn't talk much, but he listened. And Boone was always there, calm, steady, loyal. Gene brought his grandson out one Saturday. The boy was maybe 12, quiet, sad. Gene said the boy's father had left. The boy didn't talk much anymore. Ray showed him how to stack wood, how to use a hammer, how to measure and cut. The boy worked beside Ray all afternoon. Didn't say much, but his hands were steady. At the end of the day, the boy looked at Ray. "Thank you," the boy said quietly. Ray nodded. "You're welcome here anytime." The boy smiled, just a little. Rose organized a town picnic at the barn. 20 people came. They brought food, music. Laughter filled the clearing. Kids ran through the grass. Adults sat on blankets and talked. Ray stood on the porch and watched. Boone sat beside him. Rose walked over. "You did this," she said. Ray shook his head. "We did this." Rose smiled. The sun set. People started to leave. They said goodbye, promised to come back. Ray and Boone were alone again. Ray sat on the porch. The evening air was warm. The sky was golden pink. The mountains stood tall in the distance. Boone lay beside him. Ray reached down and rested his hand on the dog's back. "We made it, boy," Ray said softly. Boone leaned against him. The dog's weight was warm and steady. The sun slipped behind the ridge. The stars began to appear, one by one, bright and clear. Ray closed his eyes. He thought about the road that had brought him here. The divorce, the auction, the barn, the storm. All of it had led to this moment. He thought about Samuel Garrett, about a man who built something that lasted, who left something behind. Ray had done the same. The barn would stand. Long after he was gone, it would stand. He opened his eyes. The stars were out now, thousands of them. The Milky Way stretched across the sky. Boone's breathing was slow and steady beside him. Ray took a deep breath. The air smelled like pine and earth and wildflowers. He was home. If this story touched you or reminded you of someone you care about, let me know by dropping a simple comment. Even just a 0 or 1 is enough to tell me you were here. And if you'd like to walk with us into the next story, hit subscribe so you never miss what's coming next.